Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room, an island show that likes to reach out to local, national, international issues, and we like to go at them fairly, but perhaps with a bit of bite on occasion. I'm
Yep.
Robin Adair, and across town, my partner in crime, John Jurisic, is biting away, ready to explode on the on the issues that are before us. And we have received, speaking of biting, some very tough love from our valued and loved viewership, John.
Loved. Sometimes I wonder from what they're writing, Robin, it's been a bit of a royal rumble online. And of course, hearing from our viewers, pros and cons certainly adds a ton of spice and action to our show. Canada played its parts as King Charles III was crowned in London. There were Mounties, was red everywhere. A Canadian delegation led by our Prime Minister, hopefully not spending $20,000 a night, and a big Canadian TV viewing audience. But recent polls show a 50-50 split right in the middle in support for the monarchy in Canada. I'm a little bit ambivalent. I'm come see, come saw about the royalty. I know you're a big supporter, and our viewer mail was also a mixed bag.
Exactly, John. And let's take a look at that bag. Brian writes us, keep the crown and its stabilizing influence.
And in contrast, Art says, I am one that was born here and think the time has come to move on. There are 6 to 8 other countries that are heading down that road.
And, Richard had this to contribute. Most Canadians are actually neutral about the monarchy. Victoria Rumble Room is just making noise, so it has outrage to promote.
Well, I guess folks are hearing our noise and I guess getting people to talking on what is a digital talk show is what we're all supposed to be about. So I think that's positive. Here's my favorite response, Robin. Rob writes, I have no problem having our own Canadian monarchy as long as I'm the only candidate for the position of king. I think I would make an excellent ruler or a king.
Well, if we do have some sort of a talent contest for King of Canada in the future, you should certainly throw your name in the ring there, Rob. And we want to give you the big thumbs up for at least giving us an entertaining note. And I also want to mention we had some tough feedback on comments made by our guest, Sheila Orr, who was our royal commentator. And we were discussing with Sheila the comments made by a woman of color who is an actress on Netflix, part of the Bridgerton series. She made the cutting remark that the royals waving to the crowd were terribly white. And most inclusive coronation in the history of the world. I would describe that coronation ceremony. And it was a negative comment. Sheila believed it was coming from a woke point of view, and she talked about being very tired of this woke consciousness. And, that got a bit of feedback.
Did it ever? Well, Heidi weighed in on Sheila Orr and her comments. Heidi's very involved in the local digital news scene and said she was insulted. She pointed out that woke in the dictionary is described as aware, and she didn't think the remarks made about a too white royal family had anything to do with woke anything.
And she went on to say, I actually suspect true woke people aren't even paying attention to the coronation. Well, Heidi, I appreciate that you represent a point of view. It's shared by some, it's not shared by all. Part of our raison d'etre on this program, on the Rumble Room, is to bring different points of view to light and to share these ideas. And, we can't always agree on everything. Let's leave it at that. And Johnny, let's flip the page.
I'm flipping, Robin. I'd like to talk for a few minutes about that apartment building in Langford that seems to be, I suppose, should be dominating the news all across our region. This apartment building has been emptied and closed twice because it's been deemed structurally unsafe. So why has this happened? Well, we asked Casey Edge from the Victoria Residential Builders Association, where does the buck stop?
The municipality, that's their bailiwick. They're the ones who issued the occupancy permit. They're the ones with the professional engineers. They all belong to the Engineers Association. So at the end of the day, their responsibility is to that, professional responsibility is to that association. I'll give you an example. Leaky condo. Every one of those leaky condos received an engineering approval and an occupancy permit from the municipality. But somehow they form a Barrett Commission, the government, the politicians form a Barrett Commission to find out what went wrong and you know, frankly, try to pin it on the builders. Well, if there were so many deficiencies with respect to that, why wasn't that caught by the professionals and the municipal inspectors? Why were all those occupancy permits given? There wasn't focus on that. So there needs to be focus on the people at the end of the day, the builders or developers are paying money to get those occupancy permits. And that's where the buck stops or should stop. So they have an engineering department and they charge big dollars for inspection fees, and the buildings there receive approval from the engineering department. So I guess you need to go back to Langford and ask the engineering department, why did you approve the building? And if you're not, so if engineering departments and municipalities aren't going to take responsibility for the inspections that they provide, perhaps they shouldn't be charging the fees.
We've also spoken to Stu Young, the 30-year mayor of Langford, who was defeated last year. And we were asking him about what went on, because he was there as mayor when the original proposal was approved by engineering. And he said there was only one engineering approval after this first time where they cried foul on the building. He said there had to be 2 signatures from engineering in order for it to proceed. And we also at that time asked Stu about the 12.4% hike in municipal taxes in Langford. He said it never would have happened on his watch. And so we asked, after all these comments, does this mean, Stu, you're coming back to public life?
No, I'm just saying right now I'm in a good space. You know, it was good. It was good for 30 years. I really enjoyed it, but I'm actually really enjoying realizing that there is life after politics, and that basically there's fun things to do out there with your friends and your family. So it's actually like I'm reconnecting, you know, because I really did take that job very seriously when I did do it. And we had a lot of great things happen in Langford that I'm very proud of. So, you know, it's time for somebody else to step in and see if they can run it. I'm just disappointed that the group that's in there now don't really have the expertise, or, you know, they can't run a business, never run a business, don't understand numbers, and hence we have a 12.5% tax increase for the first time in Langford's history, and the largest tax increase on Southern Vancouver Island this year.
You know, we pushed a little harder on the question of a political comeback, Robin, and Stu Young is never short of things to say.
The issue is, it's very easy to sit back and watch, you know, Langford get ruined or Victoria, but I'm not going to go away easy. If Langford starts to attract problems, you know, in the downtown core, and it doesn't become a family community. We built a family community over the last 30 years. A great place to raise your family. Lots of sports for the kids to enjoy and to get involved in. Entertainment stuff with the stadium.
So if you see it going downhill, you're going to be heard from.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to let people know.
They're already going to start to hear from me, basically, because I don't believe we're going in the right direction.
I was just speaking to the BC Alliance leader, Kevin Falcon, and he was telling me that he thinks a major wedge issue where there's a lot of debate and a lot of room for maybe change in terms of how we do things, is with catch and release and dealing with all the mental illness and drug addiction, not just down in our downtown core, but throughout our communities. So the question is, I guess, do you think that that is in fact a major wedge issue for people here? Do you think people in the Western communities even recognize that this is something that needs to be dealt with, or it's going to really move in even to these more suburban areas because it's like a cancer?
Yeah, well, I've said that if we continue to support people on the streets with free drugs and nowhere to go and no services, we're going to be in trouble. All of our communities. So we're going to be the breeding ground for the crime that comes along with the drug addictions. And, you leave somebody on the streets for 2 years doing drugs in the open. The longer you leave them on the street without help, the worse off they're going to be, and they're not going to be able to manage themselves ever. And we got to get people back to being able to look after themselves as best they can. You leave somebody on the street for 3-4 years doing drugs, you've got somebody that has to have almost 24-hour care, and that's when the government will have to step in when it's too late. So early intervention is good, a place for people to go to get help and basically decide who's a criminal and who's not going to be able to understand that it's important to make sure our communities are safe. So we've got to make sure that these people have the services available. And if it means institutionalizing some help, or where you can get help in an institution, and work on a way to do that. But we need to get the people off the street, we need to get them clean, and we need to get them part of society, where right now the residential areas outside of Victoria and in Victoria, it's a scary place for people to go. And the excuse shouldn't be that they're on drugs. These are people that basically need help to get off the drugs, and then you'll have less crime. So it all goes hand in hand with what we do. But what I'm seeing out there, it's not getting better, it's getting actually worse in BC right now, and especially in Langford. We didn't have many issues at all. Now there's a bunch of homeless that are living in our downtown core, and their thefts are up. Shoplifting is up 100% in the last 3 months. So this people, they just go into stores, they wreak havoc, and there's no consequences whatsoever. And we need to have consequences for people that break the law. The experiment of having the people look after themselves on the streets and in our communities isn't working. It has never worked, and that's not a model to be proud of. We need to get facilities where people can go and get the help they need. And if you're going to continue to break into people's houses or be a revolving door of crime, then that's going to be a problem. And so we need to address that. We need to make sure that people are incarcerated, that are criminals, and not just let them out to go do another criminal act again.
So is that saying you're not going to run for something else in the future, provincially or federally?
No, I'm just saying right now I'm in a good space. It was good. It was good for 30 years. I really enjoyed it, but I'm actually really enjoying realizing that there is life after politics, and that basically there's fun things to do out there with your friends and your family. So it's actually like I'm reconnecting, because I really did take that job very seriously when I did do it. And we had a lot of great things happen in Langford that I'm very proud of. So, it's time for somebody else to step in and see if they can run it. I'm just disappointed that the group that's in there now don't really have the expertise, or, they can't run a business. Never run a business, don't understand numbers, and hence we have a 12.5% tax increase for the first time in Langford's history, and the largest tax increase on Southern Vancouver Island this year. And that's after them being in power 6 months.
Stu claims he's enjoying his time away from the spotlight. Probably a little bit on Langford Lake, who knows, maybe a little bit overseas, but don't be surprised to see him back in the political game at some level in the future. He's very active on media locally. In the meantime, however, he's continuing to do the great things that Stu's done for 30 years. He's helping to raise money for another West Shore humanitarian mission to Ukraine. This would be the third time island leaders have traveled to the war-torn country. We'll have more details on a future program.
Certainly things are heating up in Ukraine right now. We'll keep a close eye on that. We do talk regularly to retired Lieutenant Colonel Chris Kilford to get his take on what's happening in Ukraine. And things heat up, be sure we'll be doing a lot more on this subject. In the meantime, how tough is it on Ukrainians? how heated are feelings between Ukraine and Russia right now. Well, if you want to see an example, there was a summit, a Black Sea summit recently in Turkey. And we had Russian diplomats and Ukrainian diplomats in the same general place. On the table, presented by the Turks, was ways to be able to transport grain shipments on the Black Sea to get it to market from both Russia and Ukraine in the middle of a war. So how hot were feelings? This is what happened when a Russian diplomat went up behind a couple of Ukrainian diplomats and pulled down their flag.
It's our flag. We're gonna fight for this flag.
And so, on that dramatic note, John, it's time to say goodbye to the Rumble Room. Maybe again you could tell folks how they can regularly follow this program, become one of our valued viewers. I think we're up to almost 1 million views since we started this project 2.5 years ago. Perhaps you could just again explain where the Rumble Room can be found.
Certainly can, Robin. Facebook is the heart and the pulse of this show, and we're also on Twitter, as we are on YouTube. All of the videos we have and clips are there. As well, we participate in a variety of news groups on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram, and we're also on TikTok. Today was a great show. Robin, I have to say that I am so excited about the interactions we're having, positive and negative. People are talking about our show. And after a hot week of weather and a hot show, more to come for sure. And I'm your Croatian sensation and continue to be in this heat, despite the way I look. John Jurassic.
And some like it hot. I'm one of those people. I'm Robin Adair, and rumble on.